The year is 2027. Beneath the sprawling velvet canopy of the South African Karoo, the world is hushed. Here, far from the frantic hum of civilization and the blinding glare of city lights, the earth seems to hold its breath. The mountains are jagged silhouettes against a sky so dense with stars that the darkness itself feels heavy, a physical weight pressing down upon the ancient scrubland. In this desolate theatre, a collection of steel giants stands in silent vigil. These are the sentinels of the modern age, the telescopes that act as our collective eyes, peering into the yawning abyss of the cosmos. Among them, one particular mechanism, a triumph of human engineering known as the Three-Eye Atlas, remains fixed on a patch of seemingly empty space. It does not blink, it does not tire. It is a lonely probe of the human mind, anchored to the tectonic plates of our world but reaching out into the eternal void. While the inhabitants
frozen
of the
for
southern
millions
hemisphere
or
sleep,
billions of years,
dreaming of terrestrial
slowly
concerns,
warms as it encounters
this
our
cold
sun's
machine
energy,
is engaged in a
releasing its
profound
composition.
act of translation. It is reading a letter that has been in transit for millions of years. This letter was not written in ink,
Turning
nor
its
was it
infrared
sent with the
eyes.
hope of a reply. It is a message of light and shadow, a ghost of an event that occurred in a distant epoch, long before the first ancestor of man stood upright on the savannah. The machine detects a flicker, a subtle shift in the electromagnetic tapestry that blankets the universe. This is the first light of a visitor, a remnant of a shattered system, or perhaps a lonely wanderer cast out from its home among the stars. To the machine, it is
Frustratingly
data,
little data.
a sequence of binary pulses and electronic signals. To us, it is a revelation. The contrast between the instrument and the discovery is stark. On one hand, there is the cold, unfeeling metal of the telescope,
Clear evidence of ongoing
chilled by the
outgassing and
nocturnal
tail
air of the
development.
desert. Its gears are lubricated to withstand the freeze, its mirrors polished to a perfection that defies the chaos of the natural world. On the other, there is the warm, fragile spark
This
of human
object,
curiosity
detected
that
early enough
conceived
to
and
launch
built
a
it.
comprehensive
We are a
observational
species
campaign,
of soft
is a
tissue and
truly
fleeting
precious
moments.
opportunity.
Yet we have constructed these iron sentinels to guard us against the oblivion of ignorance. The Three-Eye Atlas is a monument to our refusal to be blind. It stands as a bridge between the mundane and the magnificent, a tool designed to capture the echoes of a catastrophe that occurred across the vast, inhospitable reaches of space. This particular signal, emerging from the dark like a shipwrecked
Preprints
survivor
are
reaching for
academic
shore,
equivalents
tells a
of early
story of an
drafts.
inexorable
They
journey
require
through the
careful
void.
scrutiny,
Consider the
not
scale of this
established
odyssey.
facts.
The object, which we have named the Three-Eye Atlas, after the very machine that found it, has traversed the vacuum for eons. It has glided through the silent corridors between galaxies, where the temperature hovers just above absolute zero, and the silence is absolute. It
No
has
smoking
survived the
guns
gravitational
detected.
pull of dead suns and the abrasive clouds of primordial dust. It is a witness to the ruthless machine of the universe, a universe that does not care if it is seen, a universe that operates on a cold logic
Truly
of entropy
artificial
and decay.
objects should be
Yet,
recognizably
here we
different.
are, in the year 2027, intercepting its path. We have reached out into
Why
the
waste
abyss,
resources on
and,
physical
for a
probes
brief,
when
shimmering
long-range
moment,
detection provides
we
all
have
the
touched the
information we
infinite.
need from afar?
The information gathered by the Sentinel is a testament to the scale paradox. We are small, infinitesimal dots on a pale blue world tucked away in an unremarkable corner of a spiral galaxy. Our lives are measured in decades, our civilizations in millennia. Yet, through these machines, we transcend our biological limits. We see the birth of stars and the slow, agonizing death of systems. We observe the unraveling of the cosmic tapestry and attempt to find a pattern in the chaos. The Three-Eye Atlas does not understand the weight of its discovery. It does not feel the existential chill
Three
that comes with
interstellar
realizing how
objects
vast and
confirmed in
indifferent the
8
cosmos
years.
truly is. It simply
Rarity
records.
of these encounters
It is
underscored.
the silent observer, the forgotten pioneer that waits in the dark
Controversy
so that we
surrounding
might see the
Oumuamua
light.
taught important lessons about the
As the
scientific
data streams
process.
from the Karoo to laboratories across the globe, the message begins to take shape. It is a cosmic letter written by a star that may no longer exist, carried
Its
by a
unique
particle of
chemistry is
light that has
unusual,
finally
but no
found a
credible evidence
destination
of artificial
after
origin or
millions of years
controlled
of
behavior
travel.
is found.
This light is a remnant of a primordial fire,
If it is a
spark
probe,
from a
it is
time when
either
the universe
completely
was
shut
younger
down,
and more volatile.
operating in ways
By
we haven't
catching
thought
this
to
light,
monitor.
the Three-Eye Atlas has effectively reached back in time, pulling a piece of the past into our present. The metal of the telescope, though cold and inanimate, becomes the vessel for this ancient story. It protects the fragile information from being lost forever to the abyss.
Peer review
In the
typically
quiet of the
takes
control
months.
room, miles away from the physical telescope, the scientists see the first images. They're not clear or vibrant like the photographs of our own sun. They're grainy, ethereal, and haunting. They depict a ghost from another star system, a celestial nomad that has finally been noticed. This is the moment of ignite, where raw data becomes human knowledge. The realization sets in that we're not just observing a rock or a star, but a fragment of the cosmic symphony. Every atom in that distant object, every photon hitting the sensor, is part of the same story that created us. We're made of the same stardust that the Three-Eye Atlas now tracks across the southern sky. The Sentinel is a lonely figure in the landscape, but it is not alone in its purpose. It is part of a grander tradition of exploration, a lineage of watchers that began when the first humans looked up and wondered about the flickering lights above. However, the Three-Eye Atlas
Incredible
represents a new
infrared
epoch.
sensitivity.
It is a machine that can see what we cannot, that can endure where we would wither. It stands as a sentinel against the dark, a mechanical guard at the edge of the unknown. While the desert wind howls around its base, the telescope remains perfectly still, its gaze locked onto the infinite. It is a testament to the fact that even in a universe defined by decay and oblivion, the act of seeking truth is a form of defiance. As the sun begins its slow ascent over the horizon, casting long orange shadows across the Karoo, the Sentinel continues its work. The message it has received is now part of our history, a permanent record in the archives of human achievement. We have read the first line of a new chapter in the great cosmic book. It is a chapter about our place in the void, about the inexorable passage of time, and about the remnants of worlds we will never visit. This discovery reminds us that we are the eyes of the universe. We are the mechanism through which the cosmos contemplates itself. In the face of the vast, uncaring abyss, our ability to watch, to record, and to wonder is our greatest triumph. The Sentinel remains, a lonely silhouette against the dawn, waiting for the next flicker, the next ghost, the next word from the eternal silence. The light from Three-Eye Atlas is more than just a scientific curiosity. It is a mirror. In its ancient journey, we see our own longing to be remembered. In its cold, metallic capture, we see our desire to understand the mechanism of existence. The year 2027 will be remembered as the moment the Sentinel spoke back to the dark, not with a voice, but with a quiet, steady click of a shutter and the unwavering focus of a lens. We are the witnesses to a universe that is both beautiful and terrifying, a symphony of light playing out across a stage of infinite shadow, and as long as the Sentinels stand, we will never be truly lost in the void. But as the data flows from the Sentinel to the screens of the Watchers, a chilling realization begins to dawn. The mathematics of this celestial nomad do not conform to the quiet, circular rhythms of our local neighbourhood. In the grand mechanics of the solar system, everything is tethered. The planets, the moons, and the vast belts of debris move in predictable ellipses, bound by the invisible chains of the sun in an eternal repetitive dance. We're
We have
used to the
visual
idea of
confirmation.
return,
The
to the
probes are
comfort
here.
of cycles that
Initiate
span
defensive
years or
protocols
decades.
and enforce radio silence.
But this visitor is different. It is a runaway train that has jumped the tracks of our star system, hurtling forward with a velocity that defies the domestic laws of our celestial home. It possesses what the architects of physics call hyperbolic excess, a speed so profound that the gravity of our Sun, which holds the mighty Jupiter, and the distant Neptune in its grasp, is powerless to stop it. This visitor arrived from the deep oblivion of interstellar space, travelling at 92,000 miles per hour. To the human mind, such a number is an abstraction, a flicker of logic that fails to capture the sheer, violent momentum of the object. It is moving too fast to be captured, too fast to be tamed. If our solar system is a well-ordered station where every traveller has a ticket and a destination, this object is a ghost ship passing through the night at a speed that renders the station's walls invisible. It did not come here to stay. It did not come here to join the choir of planets. It is merely a witness to our existence for a brief, flickering moment before it vanishes back into the abyss from which it emerged.
Probe theories.
The trajectory it follows is an open curve, a geometric shape that begins in the infinite past and ends in the infinite future. It is a path that will never close, a journey that will never bring it back to this point in the tapestry of space-time. As it dives toward the sun, it is not being pulled into an embrace. It is being flung outward, slingshot by the very star that gives us life. The sun acts not as a home, but as a catalyst for its departure, accelerating the nomad toward the void with inexorable force. This is the ruthlessness of the cosmic machine. Gravity, the force that binds us to the Earth and the Earth to the Sun, is here used as an engine of exile. The visitor is a lonely probe of nature, an accidental explorer that has spent millions of years in the silent dark between the stars and will spend millions more in the same cold embrace. We must imagine the perspective of this fragment, this remnant of a world we will never know. It has crossed the vast, light-year spanning gulfs that separate the sun from its nearest neighbours. It has endured the primordial cold of the interstellar medium, where the density of matter is so low that a single atom is a lonely sentinel in a cathedral of nothingness. For eons, it was a silent passenger in the dark, its surface scarred by the bombardment of cosmic rays, its heart a frozen record of a distant catastrophe. Now,
10 billion
it enters the light of our
potentially
sun,
habitable worlds.
a brief epoch of warmth and illumination in an existence defined by decay and shadow. It does not feel the heat. It does not hear the roar of the solar wind.
It is behaving precisely
It simply
as
follows
predicted.
the curve of the universe.
Just another
a
predictable
mindless,
celestial
frozen
object, then.
messenger carrying the secrets of a foreign star. The speed of this visitor is a desperate rush, a frantic escape from the very gravity that attempted to claim it. In its hyperbolic path, we see the true scale of the universe. Our solar system, which seems so vast to us, is merely a pinprick on a map of infinite proportions. The Nomad's velocity tells us that it was born in a place where the rules of the cosmos were written in a different hand. It is a reminder that our sun is but one of hundreds of billions, a single note in a symphony that stretches beyond the reach of our most powerful telescopes. The visitor is a physical manifestation of the scale paradox. It is a small, unremarkable rock, yet its motion speaks of the grandest forces in existence. It bridges the gap between the microscopic reality of our lives and the macroscopic reality of the cosmos. As it passes the orbit of the inner planets, the visitor remains a solitary figure, unyielding and indifferent to the life that thrives on the pale blue dot nearby. It does not pause to be admired. It does not slow down to be studied. Every second that passes, it covers 25 miles of the void. By the time our telescopes have fully resolved its shape, it is already moving toward the outer reaches of our influence. It is a passenger on a one-way journey into the eternal. Mathematics are clear. It will pass the orbit of Neptune, then the Kuiper Belt, and finally the Oort cloud, that shell of icy sentinels that marks the final boundary of our sun's domain. Beyond that lies the true
Atlas
abyss,
holds the key
empty
to
space
understanding
between
the
stars where
processes
the
of
light
planet
the sun
formation
is
throughout the
nothing more than
galaxy.
a particularly bright spark in a sky full of diamonds.
Millions
This
of
is the
cubic
nature of the
kilometers of
hyperbolic
space,
excess.
glowing
It is a
faintly.
rejection of the local. It is a statement of independence from the gravitational well
No
that
narrowband
defines
radio
our reality.
transmissions detected. No laser
The visitor
communication
is a
detected.
fragment of the primordial universe, a piece of the original unravelling that has been tossed across the void by the death of a distant star or the birth of a new world. It carries within its frozen structure the chemistry of a different epoch, the remnants of a sun that burned out long before our own
Water
was
vapor,
ignited.
carbon
It
monoxide,
is a time
and dust
capsule from
particles
the
are
deep
clearly
past,
visible.
hurtling toward a
Typical
future where
comet
our own
signatures.
sun will be nothing more
This
than a
simply
white
does
dwarf,
not make
a
sense.
cooling ember in a darkening universe. The lonely
How
probe,
could we
as
have
we might
missed
call
this?
it, is a mirror to our own sense of isolation. We look at its inexorable path, and we see our own fragility. We are tethered to our world,
No
bound
artificial
by the
transmissions
atmosphere, by the
detected.
gravity, and by the short span of our lives.
Thermal
We are the
emissions
stationary
consistent with
observers,
solar
while the
heating.
universe is a place of constant, violent motion. This object is a messenger of that motion, a reminder that the stillness of our night sky is an illusion. Everything is moving, everything is flying apart, and everything is eventually swallowed by the void. The visitor's flight is a microcosm of the expansion of the universe itself, a steady, unstoppable increase in the distance between things. In the archives of the 3i Atlas, the data will be recorded as a triumph of human ingenuity. We found the ghost in the dark. We measured its speed, we calculated its path, and we gave it a name. But the object itself remains untouched by our knowledge. It is a mechanism of pure physics, unburdened by consciousness or purpose. It is a sentinel of the silent, moving through the tapestry of space-time with a grace that is both beautiful and terrifying. It does not seek to be known, it simply is. And as it fades into the distance, its light growing dimmer with every passing hour, we are left with the melancholic realization that we will never see its like again. It was a once-in-a-civilization event, a brief intersection of two unrelated stories in the vast, uncaring cosmos. The departure of the nomad marks the end of a chapter, but the beginning of a deeper contemplation. We are forced to look beyond the boundaries of our own solar system and recognize that we are part of a much larger, much more chaotic mechanism. The hyperbolic excess of the visitor is a crack in the ceiling of our world, a glimpse of the terrifying speeds
Let it
and
be
distances
known,
that define the
first
true nature of
directive shall
existence.
guide our every
We are
interaction.
witnesses to an eternal journey, a flight from
Perhaps
the
this
primordial
is exactly
into
what
the
we would
oblivion.
expect from truly mature
And
civilizations.
as the visitor vanishes into the dark,
Wisdom.
we remain on our small,
So different from
sun-drenched
terrestrial
world,
life,
watching the stars
unrecognized
and
as
waiting
such,
for the next
even
word
if
from
we
the
were looking
silence,
directly at the
knowing
evidence.
that the universe is far larger, far older, and far more indifferent than we ever dared to imagine. To trace the path of this wanderer is to look into the rearview mirror of deep time, following a trajectory that leads away from our local neighbourhood and back toward the velvet dark of the northern sky. If we project its course backward through the invisible currents of gravity and the silent tides of the interstellar medium, we find ourselves staring at the constellation of Lyra. There, the brilliant star Vega sits like a blue-white diamond, the centerpiece of a celestial harp that has played a silent song for eons. But our visitor is not a child of Vega. It is a ghost, a remnant of a system that may no longer exist in the form we can recognize. It is a forgotten pioneer, an accidental envoy cast out from its home by a cosmic catastrophe
Several
that occurred
months
long
within
before the
range
first
of our most
ancestors of
powerful
humanity
telescopes,
stood upright
an
on the
extended
African
period
savanna.
of observation.
The journey of this object began in a primordial epoch, in a corner of the galaxy that was once vibrant with the heat of a young star and the chaotic motion of forming planets. We can imagine the scene of its departure as a moment of
Hydrogen
absolute violence.
cyanide.
Perhaps it was a giant world,
The energy
a
readings
gas
are off
titan
the
the size
charts.
of Jupiter,
We need to analyze
that
this
swung
further.
too close to a cluster of
It's
icy
accelerating too
shards at
fast.
the edge of its system. In a display of inexorable physics, the smaller body was snatched from its stable orbit and flung outward, accelerated to speeds that would allow it to escape the grip of its parent sun forever. It was a rejection so profound that the object was exiled into the abyss, destined to spend hundreds of thousands of years in the freezing isolation of the void between the stars. As it crossed the threshold into interstellar space, the light of its home star began to fade, shrinking from a blazing orb into a mere point of light, indistinguishable from the millions of other sparks in the tapestry of the cosmos. For 600,000 years, this traveller
See the
moved
full
through a
data.
silence so absolute that it defies human comprehension. It passed through the great deserts of the galaxy, regions where the density of matter is so low that a single atom of hydrogen might be the only companion for leagues. This is the true nature of the cosmos, not a crowded gallery of planets
Maybe we're
and
asking the
moons,
wrong
but a
question.
vast and terrifying emptiness, punctuated only occasionally by the lonely flight of a nomad. During its long transit, the visitor served as a silent sentinel of the dark. It witnessed the slow rotation of the Milky Way, the drift of distant nebulae, and the quiet death of stars whose light had once guided its path. It carried with it the chemical signature of its origin, a frozen record of a different solar system's recipe, preserved in the bitter cold of the vacuum. It is a piece of the primordial architecture, a brick from a house that has since been dismantled by time. In this sense, the object is a witness to the inherent instability of the universe. Nothing is permanent. Every system is a temporary arrangement of matter, subject to the whims of gravity and the slow, grinding decay of entropy. To think of this object as a forgotten pioneer is to recognize the tragedy of its existence. It has travelled billions of leagues, crossing the immense gulfs that separate the islands of light we call stars, yet it has no consciousness to record its findings. It has no eyes to see the majesty of the Orion Nebula as it drifted past, no mind to contemplate the sheer scale of the abyss it was crossing. It is a blind messenger, a fragment of stone and ice that has survived the unravelling of its own world,
Such a rich
only to
carbon
find itself a
dioxide
stranger
composition.
in ours. It is the ultimate outsider, a remnant of a history that is not our own, hurtling through a present that it cannot understand. As we trace its line back to the constellation of Lyra, we are reminded that our own sun is also moving, drifting through the local fluff of the interstellar medium at a pace that seems glacial to us, but is lightning fast on a galactic scale. The meeting between our solar system and this visitor was not a planned encounter. It was a brief, coincidental intersection of two paths in the dark. It was
We
a
are
moment
not
where the
just
history of a
rare.
distant,
We
unknown
are
star system
unique.
touched the history of our own. For a few weeks we shared the same space-time, the same gravity and the same sunlight, but the laws of motion are unforgiving. The hyperbolic excess that brought it here is the same mechanism that ensures its departure. The ghost of Lyra is now receding, returning to the oblivion from which it emerged. It is moving toward the constellation of Pegasus, heading back into the primordial dark where it has spent the
Patient
vast
observers
majority of its
who long ago
existence.
learned that the best
We are
observation
left on the shore,
posts are the ones
watching
no
as
one
the ship
notices.
disappears over the horizon of our detection, knowing that it will continue its
Processes
journey
are
for
slow
millions
to
of years to come.
reproductive
It will pass other stars, perhaps entering the outskirts of systems where other civilizations are just beginning to look at the sky with wonder. They may catch a glimpse of it, a tiny tumbling spark in the dark, and they will wonder, as we did, where it came from and what stories it carries in its silent, frozen heart. This is the melancholic optimism of the cosmic perspective. We are small, our lives are brief, and our world is but a tiny island in an ocean of emptiness. But for a brief moment, we were able to reach out and touch a relic from the deep past. We were able to read the trajectory of a ghost and understand, however imperfectly, the scale of the journey it has undertaken. The visitor is a reminder that the universe is a place of endless motion and eternal change.
Oh, no.
It tells us that we are part of a larger symphony, a complex and beautiful mechanism that spans across eons and across the vast reaches of the void. Even as the nomad vanishes into the abyss, its presence remains etched in our records and our imagination, a testament to the fact that in a universe of silence, we are here to listen, to observe, and to remember the pioneers that the stars have forgotten. Yet, as this nomad fled toward the constellation of Pegasus, it left behind a profound and unsettling silence. In the clockwork mechanism of our solar system, there are rules that every celestial body must obey. The sun is not merely a source of light, it is a violent, incandescent furnace, a ruthless machine of heat and radiation that dominates everything within its gravitational reach. When a visitor from the outer dark approaches this furnace, the laws of thermodynamics dictate a spectacular transformation. We expected a show, a celestial performance that would announce the visitor's composition to the world. We expected a comet. In our understanding of the cosmos, a comet is a fragile remnant of the primordial era, a frozen archive of water ice, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. As it nears the sun, the intense heat should cause these volatile
This is Earth's
substances to
broadcast
sublimate,
presence, the era
erupting from
of
the frozen
technological
interior in
adolescence.
violent jets of gas and dust. This is the birth of the coma,
Perhaps
the shimmering
advanced
atmosphere that
civilizations
surrounds
simply
the
have better
nucleus,
things to
and the
do.
magnificent
A new
tail that
perspective.
stretches across millions of English miles, illuminated by the solar wind. It is a symphony of destruction and beauty, a signal that the ice is surrendering to the fire. It is the signature of a visitor from the cold, a testimony to its ancient frozen origin. But this visitor, this strange messenger from another star, refused to play its part. It approached the perihelion, the point of its closest encounter with our sun, at a distance of less than 1/4 of the span between the Earth and its star. At such a range, the solar radiation is relentless. The furnace was stoked to its highest intensity. Any ice on the surface or buried within the shallow layers of the object should have been vaporized instantly. The heavens should have witnessed a massive outgassing, a brilliant display of white light as the dust was liberated from its frozen prison. And yet there was nothing. No coma appeared. No tail trailed behind it. The object remained a dark, naked shard of matter, absorbing the sun's heat but offering no visible reaction. It was a mechanical ghost, a gear in the cosmic machine that refused to turn. This absence of a coma was not merely a curiosity, it was a catastrophe for our understanding of the interstellar medium. If this object was born in the frigid outskirts of a distant star system, it should have been rich in volatiles. It should have been a dirty snowball, ready to melt in the presence of our sun. Its silence suggested something far more alien, something that defied the simple classifications we use to order the universe. The missing coma created a paradox that threatened to unravel our theories. If it was not a comet, then what was it? Some suggested it was a pure asteroid, a hunk of rock and metal
Based on
forged in the
current
inner fires of a
evidence,
far-off
Tree
solar system
Atlas
and
appears
then
to be a
ejected into
natural
the
comet.
void. But asteroids are the
Most
products of
successful
violent
species
collisions and
are not
intense heat,
necessarily the
usually
loudest.
found close to their parent stars. For an asteroid to find its way into the interstellar abyss, it would have to be cast out by the gravitational dance of giant planets, a process that is far less common than the ejection of comets. To find an asteroid as our first interstellar visitor would be like finding a single grain of sand in a desert of snow. It was statistically improbable, a fluke that the ruthless machine of probability should not have allowed. We were forced to look closer at the data, searching for any sign of a hidden mechanism. Perhaps the ice was buried deep beneath a thick insulating crust of organic compounds, a dark mantle baked by eons of cosmic rays in the interstellar void. Such a crust could act as a shield, protecting the frozen heart from the sun's furnace. But even the strongest shield has a breaking point. As the object rounded the sun, the temperature on its surface soared to hundreds of degrees. The heat should have conducted inward, reaching the volatile pockets and causing them to burst forth in subterranean explosions. Still, the telescope saw only a dim, tumbling point of light. The object remained sealed, a vault of secrets that refused to yield to the sun's interrogation. This mechanical indifference is what haunts the scientist who studied it. The universe is supposed to be a place of cause and effect, where the application of heat to ice results in the creation of gas. This is the simple, inexorable logic of the machine. When the machine fails to produce the expected output, we are left to
Time
wonder
is
if we
running
truly
out.
understand the components. Was the object made of something denser, something more resilient than any material we have encountered in our own neighbourhood? Was it a remnant of a world so different from ours that our laws of chemistry are merely approximations of a deeper, more complex reality? The lack of a tail also meant that there was no dust being shed. Normally, as a comet disintegrates, it leaves a trail of crumbs behind it, a breadcrumb path that allows us to study its composition through spectroscopy. We look for the signatures of cyanogen, of diatomic carbon, of water vapour. But the visitor left no trail.
For those keeping score,
It passed through our
that's
system like a shadow,
210,000
leaving the
kilometers per
vacuum
hour.
as empty as it found it. We were reaching out into the dark, trying to grasp a ghost that had no substance to offer. The abyss remained silent, and the messenger remained an enigma. This is the cruelty of the cosmic scale. We are granted a glimpse of something truly extraordinary, a piece of another world, yet it is stripped of the very features that would allow us to understand it. The ruthless machine of the universe does not care for our curiosity. It operates on a level of efficiency that is both beautiful and terrifying. The visitor did not outgaze because, in its current state, it was perfectly adapted to the vacuum. It was a finished product of eons of erosion and cosmic weathering, a polished stone in the river of time. The fact that it did not perform the expected symphony of sublimation is a reminder that the universe is under no obligation to be legible to us. As we watched it recede, the questions only grew louder. If it wasn't outgassing, why did its trajectory change? If there was no visible tail to provide a tiny rocket-like thrust, what was the mechanism that nudged it away from the path dictated by gravity alone? This is the final, most haunting movement in the story of the missing coma. The object was not just silent, it was subtly, impossibly defiant. It moved as if it were being pushed by an invisible hand, a force that left no trace in the electromagnetic spectrum. We are left to contemplate the possibility that our first visitor from the stars was something entirely outside our experience. Perhaps it was a shard of a shattered planet, a piece of a crust so ancient that all its volatiles have been bled away billions of years ago. Or perhaps it was something even more strange, a technological remnant, a piece of celestial debris from a civilization that has long since vanished into oblivion. In the absence of the coma, the imagination is free to wander into the most distant reaches of speculation, but the science remains grounded in the observation of the void. We saw a rock that should have been a comet. We saw a silent sentinel that should have been a screaming furnace. In the end, the missing coma tells us more
It's
about
like
our
trying
own
to measure a
limitations
light
than about the
bulb by
object
looking
itself.
directly into its
We
overwhelming
build models
glow.
of the universe based on the small corner of space we inhabit. We assume that the laws we observe here are universal, that every star system is a mirror of our own, but the visitor is a reminder that the cosmos is vast and varied beyond our wildest imaginings. It is a tapestry of infinite complexity, and we have only seen a few stray threads. The ghost of Lyra, with its dark, unyielding surface and its refusal to ignite,
Territorial disputes
stands
are
as a
minimal.
monument to the unknown. It is a fragment of a larger history, a piece of a story that we may never truly be able to read.
It's a cosmic silence.
As it vanishes back into the eternal night, it leaves us with the realization that the universe is full of machines we do not understand, performing functions we cannot yet perceive. The visitor did not merely drift, it tumbled. As it receded into the dark, it left behind a final rhythmic breadcrumb trail of photons for our senses to devour. This was the pulse of a dying star, or the heartbeat of a ghost, a flickering signal
We must
that revealed
address
the
the
true,
consensus problem for the
haunting
galactic
nature of its
zoo
form.
system.
Every 8
The ethical
2/10 of an hour, the
implications
object
are
completed a
vast.
single rotation, and in doing so, it performed a dance of light that defied
This data
every
simply does not
expectation of
align with
celestial
any
mechanics.
known celestial body.
This is where we encounter the light curve paradox, a phenomenon that forced us to confront the sheer impossibility of what we were witnessing. In the cold language of astrophysics, a light curve is the record of how an object's brightness changes over time. Usually, a space rock is a jagged, irregular lump, and as it spins, its brightness fluctuates by a small margin. But this messenger was different. Its brightness did not merely shift, it surged and plummeted by a factor of 10. Every 8 2/10 of an hour, it would ignite with reflected sunlight, becoming tenfold brighter before fading back into the gloom.
Solar
To achieve such a
radiation heats the
dramatic
nucleus,
variation,
causing
the
a
object could
rapid
not be a
sublimation
simple
of
sphere
volatile
or a common
compounds.
potato-shaped asteroid. It
The
had
high
to be
CO2
something
content
extreme.
and emerging cyanide are
It had to be
explained
an
by
object
natural
whose length was
processes
at
in a
least
different
10
stellar
times its
nursery,
width.
not artificial
Imagine
chemistry.
a needle of dark
With
glass
unlimited
or a thin
funding,
metallic
we can
disc
finally
cast out
achieve
into
the
the abyss.
impossible.
If we were to place this object on the surface of our world, its proportions would mirror the most ambitious feats of human architecture. It would be a skyscraper of impossible thinness, a shard of obsidian towering over a city, yet possessing a width no greater than a few city blocks. Here, the scale paradox takes hold of the mind. In the vastness of the cosmos, a a few hundred meters is a microscopic speck, a grain of sand in a desert that spans light years. Yet, when we compare this speck to the natural geometry of our own solar system, it stands out as a radical departure from the norm. Every other moon, every other comet, every other wandering stone we have ever catalogued follows a certain logic of formation. They are rounded by gravity, or chipped into rough predictable shapes by eons of collisions.
Refreshingly familiar
None of them
composition.
possess the elongated, razor-thin profile of this visitor. This geometry suggests a haunting intentionality. While nature is capable of producing beauty, it rarely produces such stark, geometric precision without a cause. We are forced to ask if this was a random rock, a freak accident of a distant planetary catastrophe, or if it was something crafted. The sheer ratio of its dimensions, 10 to 1, speaks of a purpose we cannot yet grasp. It moved through the void not as a tumbling boulder, but as a sentinel, its long axis cutting through the vacuum like the prow of a ship. It was a remnant of a history we were never meant to witness, a fragment of a tapestry woven in a forge billions of miles away and millions of years in the past. The light curve paradox tells us that the universe
A
is not just
comprehensive
vast,
understanding
it is
of
also
this
deeply
unique
strange
object.
in its particulars. We looked at the flickering light and tried to map it onto our understanding of the world. We used our most advanced mathematics to model its spin, to reconstruct its shape from the meagre data points we gathered. But the more we looked, the more the object seemed to slip through our fingers. The tenfold change in brightness was so
Conventional ice
extreme
chemistry,
that some
along with
researchers
solar
began to
heating,
wonder if we were
fully
looking at a
explains
solid object at
3I
all.
slash Atlas's
Perhaps it was
composition.
a cloud or a mesh, or a structure so light and airy that it was pushed by the very pressure of the sun's rays. This is the cruelty of our perspective. We are the witnesses, the conscious observers of a silent machine that has no interest in being understood. We see a needle in a cathedral of silence, and try to find the thread that connects it to our own story. We look for the mechanism, the hidden engine that explains its defiance of gravity and its impossible shape. But the cosmos offers no easy answers. The visitor is a reminder that our architecture, our cities, and our grandest monuments are but toys compared to the scale of the void. We build for a century, perhaps a millennium, but this object has been travelling through the eternal night for an epoch. It has endured the
preliminary
radiation of
results of the
unknown
polarization
stars
are
and the
quite
cold of the
intriguing.
interstellar
I'm not
abyss,
convinced yet.
its polished surface reflecting the light
What
of a
about the
thousand
margin of error?
suns we will never see. As it tumbled through its 8 2/10 of an hour cycle, it seemed to be signalling its indifference to us. The pulse was steady, inexorable, a rhythmic ticking in the clockwork of the universe. It was a piece of celestial debris, yes, but it was also a masterpiece of cosmic weathering. If it was a natural object, then it was a 1 in a billion anomaly, a shard of a world that was torn apart in a way we cannot imagine. If it was a technological remnant, then it was a piece of ancient refuse, a discarded shell from a civilization that may have long since
We need
vanished
to confirm
into
the
oblivion.
coordinates.
I am pulling up the latest
The
data
scale
now.
paradox reminds us that the smallest things can hold the most profound mysteries. This needle, lost in the vastness of space, forced us to rewrite our understanding of what is possible. It challenged the very laws of how we think celestial bodies are formed. We are used to the round, the bulky, and the
Comet is
chaotic.
showing
We are
increased
not
energy
used to the
spikes.
elegant, the thin, and the precise.
Deploying holographic projector
The visitor
now.
was a silver
Readings are
splinter
off
in
the
the eye of the
charts.
establishment, a reminder that the tapestry of the universe is far more complex than our models suggest. We watch the light fade. We watch the tenfold pulse grow weaker as the distance between us increased by millions of miles every day. The visitor was returning to the dark, its mission, whether natural or intended, complete. It had crossed the threshold of our sanctuary, performed its silent symphony of light, and was now receding into the abyss where no human eye could follow. We are left with the data, the numbers spelled out in the silence of our archives, and the haunting realization that we were visited by something that was fundamentally other. The light curve was not just a graph on a screen, it was a portrait of a stranger. It was the only face the visitor ever showed us, a face of shifting shadows and sudden, brilliant flashes of reflected sun. In that flickering rhythm, we saw the reflection of our own curiosity and our own insignificance. We are the watchers on the shore, seeing a single mast pass on the horizon of a vast and turbulent ocean. We do not know where the ship came from, who built it, or where it is going. We only know that for a brief moment the light of our star caught its hull, and for 8 2/10 of an hour it told us a story of a universe that is far older, far larger, and far more mysterious than we ever dared to dream. The void remains, and the visitor is gone, but the echo of its pulse remains etched into the history of our species, a testament to the fact that we are not the only architects in the cosmos. But the story did not end with the simple disappearance into the dark. As the visitor moved further from the warmth of our star toward the freezing reaches of the outer solar system, it performed one final inexplicable act. According to the rigid laws of celestial mechanics, an object
Its
under the
large
sole
size,
influence of
stable
gravity should
rotation,
follow a
and unique
predictable
dust
path,
production are
its
natural
speed
consequences of
dictated
its
by the
extreme
mass of the
age
sun
and exotic
and the
origin.
distance from its centre. We expected it to slow down as it climbed the steep gravitational well, a weary traveller losing momentum. Instead, the visitor accelerated. It was a subtle deviation, a tiny nudge from an unseen hand, but in the cold precision of the cosmos, it was a thunderclap of mystery. This was not the violent, fiery propulsion of a chemical rocket. There was no visible exhaust, no luminous trail of ionized gas, no frantic burning of fuel. It was an invisible push, a silent defiance of the expected trajectory. In our attempts to unravel this enigma, we turned our most sophisticated instruments toward the receding speck. Among these was the great Golden Sentinel, the James Webb Space Telescope, stationed 1 million miles from the Earth. This masterwork of human engineering, with its 18 hexagonal mirrors coated in a thin layer of gold, was designed to peer into the primordial dawn of the universe. Yet, it was called upon to witness this modern ghost as it fled into the abyss. The search was conducted in the infrared, seeking the telltale signature of heat. If the visitor were a comet, the sun's warmth would have vaporized the ices buried within its crust, creating jets of gas and dust that would act like natural thrusters. This process, known as outgassing, is common among the icy wanderers of our own system. But the golden eye of the telescope saw nothing. There was no cloud of carbon monoxide, no shroud of dust, no shimmering veil of water vapour. The object remained a clean, silent splinter, devoid of the chaotic atmosphere that defines a comet. The mystery deepened. If there was no fire, no steam, and no gas, then what was the nature of the force that chose to accelerate this lonely probe? We must then consider the most delicate of all cosmic mechanisms, the pressure of light itself. To our human senses, the sun's rays are a gentle warmth, a weightless presence. But to an object with enough surface area and a vanishingly small mass, the photons streaming from a star are like the pellets of a never-ending storm. This is the principle of the solar sail, a technology we have only begun to dream of. Imagine a membrane thinner than a human hair, spanning the width of a city block, yet weighing no more than a few handfuls of dust. When such a sail is unfurled, it catches the momentum of light, turning the sun's radiance into a silent, inexorable wind. In this light, the visitor ceases to be a mere rock and becomes a cosmic letter, a message written in the language of physics. If it were a derelict sail, a remnant of a defunct interstellar craft, its behaviour would finally align with the observations. As it moved away from the sun, the pressure of the solar wind would act upon its vast, thin surface, pushing it faster than gravity alone would allow. We began to imagine the object not as a solid cylinder, but as something far more ethereal. Perhaps it was a crumpled sheet of reflective material, a discarded fragment of a civilization that had mastered the art of sailing between the stars. It was a phantom ship, its sails tattered by eons of exposure to the interstellar void, yet still functional enough to catch the breath of our sun. This thought experiment forces us to confront the scale paradox once again. We're used to things being heavy, solid, and enduring. Our monuments are built of stone and steel, designed to resist the wind, But in the vacuum of the cosmos, the most efficient way to travel across the light years may be to become as light as a shadow. The visitor may have been an ancient sentinel, its mission forgotten by its creators, drifting through the dark for millions of years until it chanced upon the hearth of our solar system. The invisible push was its final salute, a mechanical reaction to the star it had come to observe.
Autonomous
The
systems
lack
are
of
handling
heat,
it.
the lack of gas, and the sudden surge in speed all point toward a reality that is difficult for our terrestrial minds to grasp. We are witnessing a machine, or the remains of one, that operates on principles of extreme elegance. It does not fight the universe with fire, it flows with the currents of light. This realization brings a sense of melancholic optimism. If such things exist, then the void is not merely a graveyard of dead worlds, but a highway of ancient intentions. The tapestry of the cosmos is woven with the threads of civilizations we will never meet, their presence revealed only by the way their debris interacts with the light of our star. As the visitor recedes into the 300 billion miles of the Oort cloud, it carries its secrets with it. We are left on the shore of our small island, looking out at the receding wake of a vessel we barely understood. The James Webb Space Telescope, for all its power, can no longer see the silver splinter. The light has grown too dim, the distance too vast. The object is returning to the eternal night of the interstellar abyss, perhaps destined to drift for another billion years before it encounters another star, another civilization, and another set of watchers. We are the witnesses to a brief moment of intersection. For a few weeks, two histories crossed paths in the dark. Our history, a frantic climb from the dust of the Earth to the edge of the atmosphere, and its history, an epoch of silent travel through the vacuum. The invisible push was the only proof we had that this was not a random collision of stones. It was a signature of something intentional, a remnant of a mind that understood how to harness the very essence of a star. Now, the silence returns. The void is as it was before, vast and indifferent. But we are changed. We have seen the evidence of a technology that transcends our own, a mechanism of such simplicity and scale that it mocks our reliance on combustion and noise. The universe is a ruthless machine.
Unbelievable.
Yes, but it is also a symphony of light and pressure. And for a brief moment we heard a single haunting note. The visitor is gone, swallowed by the oblivion from which it emerged, leaving us to wonder how many more sails are unfurling in the dark, catching the light of distant suns, and what stories they might tell if only we had the eyes to see them. We look up at the stars and no longer see only cold points of light. We see potential harbours, and we wonder if, one day, we too will weave a membrane of light and cast ourselves into the inexorable wind of the cosmos. To understand the nature of the visitor, one must first understand the way the cosmos breathes in the dark. For decades, our sentinels in the high orbit of Earth have peered into the infrared, watching the subtle glow of the heavens. In this spectrum, the universe is not a collection of pinpricks of light, but a landscape of varying temperatures, where every stone and every cloud of gas whispers its identity through the heat it emits. When we look at a typical inhabitant of our solar system, such as the massive asteroid Vesta, we see an object that is deeply integrated into the thermal rhythm of our star. Vesta is a remnant of a primordial epoch, a rocky world that has spent billions of years absorbing the radiation of the sun. As it rotates, it warms and cools in a predictable cycle, its thermal emission acting as a confession of its composition and its history. It is a stone that belongs here, a child of the hearth that grows warm under the touch of the light. But when the gaze of our most sensitive instruments fell upon the object known as 3i Atlas, the data returned a chilling silence. The thermal anomaly was immediate and profound. While a stone like Vesta radiates its internal heat back into the abyss, creating a signature that we can use to measure its size and its texture, the visitor remained stubbornly, unnaturally cold. It was as if the object were
Anomaly
a ghost,
detected.
passing through the solar furnace without allowing the flames to touch its soul. This lack of heat was not a sign of absence, but a sign of a terrifying efficiency. It suggested a composition that was not of rock or ice, but something far more deliberate. The visitor did not absorb the light of our star. It rejected it. Its metallic skin, polished by eons of travel through the vacuum, acted as a shield, reflecting the solar energy back into the void with a precision that mocked the chaotic surfaces of our local asteroids. In this moment, the image of the universe as a ruthless machine begins to take shape in the mind. If the cosmos is a mechanism of inexorable logic, then this visitor is its most perfect gear. It does not participate in the cycle of decay and warmth that defines our biological world. Instead, it is a sentinel of the interstellar abyss, a fragment of
Direct
technology,
study through close-up
or perhaps
imaging
a dead
and
vessel
sample
that has
collection.
transcended the need for a sun. The thermal emission we expected to find was missing because the object was
Just
designed,
the beginning of a
or perhaps
larger
evolved
narrative
through some unknown
unfolding
process,
over decades.
to remain indifferent to the environment around it. It is a structure that exists in a state of eternal equilibrium with the absolute zero of the deep void. To look upon its thermal profile is to look upon the face of a machine that has no use for the flickering candles of a star system. This rejection of the sun's warmth suggests a composition that challenges our understanding of celestial materials. While our world is built of silicates and heavy metals that trap and hold the energy of the light, the visitor seems to be draped in a membrane that operates on a different plane of physics. It is a remnant of a civilization or a process that treats the heat of a star as a nuisance to be deflected rather than a gift
The
to be
Vera C.
cherished.
Rubin Observatory identifies
As it moved
interstellar
through the inner
objects
solar system,
months
passing
before
closer to
closest
the sun
approach.
than many of our own planets, its temperature barely stirred from the frigid depths of the interstellar night. It was a silver splinter in the eye of the sun, a mirror
So,
that refused to be
Is
ignited.
3 Atlas actually a comet at
This
all?
is the hallmark of a mechanism built for the long journey, a vessel that understands that in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, heat is a fleeting catastrophe, while the cold is the only eternal truth. We find ourselves contemplating the possibility that the universe is populated by these silent watchers, machines that have outlived their creators and now drift through the dark like shadows. The ruthlessness of such an existence is difficult to grasp. To move through the light of 1 trillion stars and never feel the warmth of a single one is a fate that feels like a descent into oblivion. Yet, for the visitor, this indifference is its greatest strength. By reflecting the energy of the star, it avoids the thermal stresses that would cause a natural asteroid to expand, contract, and eventually unravel. It maintains its integrity through a stubborn refusal to interact with its surroundings. It is the ultimate expression of the void, a piece of the abyss that has taken form and ventured into the light, protected by a skin that remembers only the dark. As we analyze the data, we realize that we are not looking at a stone, but at a signature. The thermal anomaly is a message written in the language of thermodynamics, a statement that the object does not belong to the ecology of our star. It is a citizen of the interstellar medium, where the distance between suns is measured in light years, and the only constant is the silence. This realization brings with it a profound sense of isolation. We live in a pocket of warmth, a tiny bubble of heat, in a universe that is overwhelmingly cold and indifferent. We are the anomalies, the frantic sparks of life trying to stay warm against the encroaching night. The visitor is the norm. It is the cold, metallic reality of a cosmos that is a machine of an infinite scale, operating on timescales that make the history of our species
Look at
seem
that
like
right
a
there.
single flickering heartbeat. The object's composition remains a mystery, hidden behind its reflective shield, but its behaviour tells us everything we need to know about its origin. It was built to survive the transition between worlds, to endure the crossing of the great gulfs where the light of all stars fades into a dim and uniform glow. It is a sentinel of the gap, a watcher of the empty places. Its journey through our system was a brief intersection between the warmth of our world and the inexorable cold of the deep. It did not come to bask in our light. It came to pass through it, its metallic skin reflecting our sun with a cold and mechanical disdain. The thermal emission was not a whisper of life, but the silent roar of a machine that has no need for us, or for the star that gives us life. In the end, the visitor reminds us that the universe is not a garden, but a vast and complicated engine. We are the dust that is caught in the gears, momentarily warmed by the friction of existence. But out there, in the true dark, the machines drift on. They are the remnants of ancient intentions, the silent heirs to empires that have long since crumbled into the dust of the abyss. They move with a grace that is born of a total lack of empathy, a perfect alignment with the ruthless laws of entropy and motion. As the visitor recedes, its temperature remains unchanged, a constant in a changing world. It returns to the shadows from which it emerged, a cold sentinel that has witnessed our sun and found it wanting, a silver ghost returning to the eternal peace of the silent metallic void. This spectral existence leads us to the threshold of the mechanical ghost theory. If the visitor is indeed an artificial artifact, then it is a relic of a catastrophe that occurred so long ago that the very stars that witnessed its birth have since exhausted their nuclear fuel and collapsed into white dwarfs, or vanished into the singularity of black holes. We are observing the motion of a corpse, a mechanical ghost that continues to perform its function long after the hands that assembled it have turned to primordial dust. This dust has been scattered across the galaxy by the relentless pressure of starlight, leaving the object as the sole surviving evidence of a vanished epoch. Imagine a world, perhaps 10,000 light-years from our own, where a civilization once flourished with the same frantic energy we see in our own cities. They were not unlike us. They looked at the same abyss and felt the same existential terror, the same desperate need to be known and remembered by a universe that seemed entirely too vast to care. They poured their collective genius into the creation of these sentinels, crafting them from materials that could withstand the erosion of eons and the biting hunger of the interstellar medium. They launched them into the void, not as messengers of war or even of peace, but as witnesses. They were the mechanical echoes of a silent scream for recognition, sent out into a cosmos that does not listen. The tragedy of the mechanical ghost is not found in its loneliness, but in its absolute perfection. It has succeeded where its creators failed. It has achieved a form of immortality, a cold and hollow transcendence that required the sacrifice of everything that makes life meaningful. It does not feel the warmth of the suns it passes. It does not marvel at the birth of new nebulae or the collision of galaxies. It simply records and reflects. It is a vessel of pure information, a data point in a cosmos that is a graveyard of high intentions. The civilization that birthed it is now a mere phantom, a collection of atoms redistributed through 1,000 different solar systems, yet the probe remains, its metallic skin unscarred by the passage of millions of years. This is the fate of all great endeavours. We build monuments to stand against the tide of time, only to realise that the tide is the very fabric of the universe itself. Entropy is the inexorable law that is never broken, the only force that truly reigns supreme from the first spark of the primordial atom to the final, shivering heat death of the universe. The visitor is a masterclass in the art of enduring the unendurable. It has survived the death of its home,
anomaly is
the
accelerating.
extinction of its masters, and the slow, grinding march of the eons. It is a pioneer of the void, a lonely traveller that has found a way to coexist with the abyss by becoming a part of it. The mechanical ghost theory posits that our galaxy is not empty, but haunted. It is filled with the silent machinery of the dead, drifting in the dark like the wreckage of a ship on a shoreless ocean. We are the newcomers, the toddlers of the cosmos, stumbling upon the relics of giants who have long since departed for the great oblivion. When we look at the visitor, we are looking into a mirror of our own distant future. We see the final outcome of the struggle to transcend our biological limitations. We see a future where we too might leave behind only a silver ghost to haunt the vacuum between the stars, a testament to a species that once dared to think it could matter. This object is a sentinel of the lost. It carries no cargo, no passengers, and no messages that we can decode. Its message is its existence. It tells us that technology is a bridge to nowhere, a mechanism that outlasts the pilot. As it moves away from our sun, Returning to the lightless reaches of the interstellar medium, it carries with it the data of our existence, adding our small, flickering warmth to its vast library of dead stars and forgotten worlds. It does not judge us, it does not pity us, it simply adds us to the ledger of the abyss. The mechanical ghost is the ultimate expression of the scale paradox. To the probe, a human life is a subatomic flicker, a momentary fluctuation in the thermal background of a single planet. Even the history of our entire species is a negligible, rounding error in the calculations of its journey. It has seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, each one believing itself to be the center of the tapestry, only to be devoured by the void. The visitor is the only constant. It is the silent observer of a universe that is a symphony of decay, a beautiful and terrifying machine that creates life only to watch it unravel. As the probe recedes, we are left with the crushing weight of the mechanical ghost theory. We must confront the possibility that the universe is not a garden waiting to be tended, but a tomb of forgotten brilliance. The silver visitor is a relic of a distinguished past, a ghost of a civilization that may have been more advanced, more compassionate and more ambitious than our own. Yet they are gone. All that remains is this cold, metallic sentinel, drifting through the dark with a mechanical disdain for the passage of time. It is a reminder that even the most advanced technology is eventually reclaimed by the void, turning from a tool of the living into a ghost of the machine.
Out any solar system
the abyss
origin.
does not just surround
Objects
us,
from our Oort cloud,
it waits
even
for
those
us.
on the most extreme
Every star we see is a countdown.
The stage was set for
Every
a cosmic
galaxy
forensics
slow-motion
investigation.
Explosion. The mechanical ghost is the only thing that truly belongs in this landscape of eternal silence. It is at home in the void because it has shed the heavy burden of life. It has traded the warmth of the blood for the cold of the vacuum, the uncertainty of the soul for the precision of the gear. It is the heir to the universe, a silver ghost that will still be drifting through the dark long after our sun has expanded and consumed the earth, leaving nothing but a memory of fire in the heart of a silent, unfeeling machine. In this realization, there is a strange and melancholic peace. We are part of a cycle that is far larger than ourselves, a cosmic drama where the actors are few and the ghosts are many. The visitor is our elder, a remnant of a time we can never know, beckoning us to look closer at the darkness. It invites us to recognize that we are not the masters of the cosmos, but temporary guests in a house built by ghosts. As it vanishes into the oblivion of the outer reaches, it leaves us with the silent roar of its indifference, a reminder that the only thing more eternal than the stars is the silence that follows them. Yet, in this overwhelming silence, a new sound emerges. It is not the roar of a star or the mechanical hum of a receding probe, but the quiet, rhythmic pulse of an inquiry. We must now turn our gaze away from the drifting metal and back toward the architects of the questions themselves. Here, we encounter the existential pivot, the moment where the vastness of the abyss meets the fragile intensity of the human witness. If the universe is a library of dead languages and forgotten epochs, we are the accidental scholars who have stumbled into its halls, clutching a flickering candle against an eternal night. We are the bridge between silent matter and the concept of meaning, a biological anomaly that refuses to accept the indifference of the cosmos. Consider a thought experiment. Imagine a universe identical to our own, with its billions of galaxies, its churning nebulae, and its silver sentinels drifting through the dark. In this universe, the same physics apply. Stars ignite through the same primordial pressures, and planets are devoured by the same inexorable expansion of their dying suns. But in this universe, there is no one to watch. There is no eye to catch the light of a distant supernova, no mind to calculate the trajectory of a comet, and no soul to feel the crushing weight of the void. In such a place, does the beauty of the tapestry truly exist? Without a witness, the symphony of the cosmos is merely a vibration in a vacuum. The light of a trillion suns is nothing more than a series of thermal fluctuations, unobserved and unloved. It is a machine running in a basement with the lights turned off, performing a task that no one requested and no one will ever acknowledge. We are the variable that changes the equation. Through some improbable sequence of catastrophes and triumphs, the dust of dead stars organised itself into a form that could look back at its origin. We are the cosmos beginning to contemplate its own reflection. This realisation is both our greatest burden and our most profound dignity. We are the only part of the infinite mechanism that feels the cold. To the probe, the vacuum is a neutral medium, a zero in a ledger of distances. To us, it is the abyss, a source of terror and wonder. The object does not care about our gaze, yet it is our gaze that gives it a name, a history and a purpose. Without the human witness, the silver visitor is just a collection of atoms moving through a vacuum. With us, it becomes a messenger, a ghost, and a testament to the fact that something once existed in the dark. This curiosity is a flame that burns with a desperate, beautiful ferocity. It is the drive to decode the letter even when the sender is long dead, and the language has been forgotten for 10 million years. We look at the data returned from the outer reaches, and we do not see mere numbers. We see the fingerprints of a creator, the echoes of a struggle, and the remnants of a dream. We are obsessed with the meaning behind the mechanism because we are the only things in the known universe for whom meaning is a necessity for survival. The vacuum does not need a reason to exist. The black hole does not require a justification for its hunger. But the human mind cannot endure the silence without attempting to fill it with a story. We are the bridge. On one side lies the silent matter of the primordial past, the cold, unfeeling stones of the celestial desert. On the other side lies the abstract realm of significance, of time and of loss. We stand in the centre, translating the roar of the suns into the language of poetry and the decay of the elements into the narrative of history. We take the raw, chaotic data of the cosmos and weave it into a tapestry of understanding. This is our unique function in the great cycle of the epoch. We are the universe's way of knowing itself, a brief and shining moment of self-awareness in an eternity of oblivion. There is a profound irony in our position. We are so small that we are invisible to the scales of the galaxies, yet we are the only ones capable of measuring them. We are so fragile that a minor fluctuation in our atmosphere could erase our entire species, yet we possess a curiosity that transcends the boundaries of our own solar system. This is the scale paradox made flesh. Our minds can contain the entire history of the universe, spanning 13,800 million years, while our bodies are confined to a single rocky outpost for a mere handful of decades. We are the witnesses to a drama that began long before our arrival, and will continue long after our departure. Yet for the duration of our watch, we are the only ones keeping the record. The silver probe, as it recedes into the interstellar medium, becomes a symbol of this lonely vigil. It is a message in a bottle cast into an ocean of infinite depth. We watch it go, not because we expect an answer, but because the act of watching is what defines us. Our desire to understand the visitor is a reflection of our desire to understand ourselves. We see our own loneliness mirrored in its metallic skin. We see our own mortality in its slow decay. Yet, in the act of observation, we transcend our limitations. For a moment, we're not just biological entities clinging to a planet. We are the eyes of the cosmos staring into the heart of the void and refusing to look away.
And that's why diversity is so important.
Optimism of the human condition. We know that we are likely alone, or at least so far removed from our neighbours that we might as well be.
Anomaly.
We know that the entropy of the universe is absolute, and that one day,
I still have my doubts.
even the stars themselves will fade into a uniform, lightless chill. We know that our history is a footnote in a book that no one will ever finish reading, and yet we continue to build our telescopes. We continue to launch our probes. We continue to ask why. This persistence is the greatest miracle of the tapestry. It is the flame that refuses to be extinguished by the cold dark. The object drifting through the abyss does not know it is being watched. It does not feel the warmth of our attention or the weight of our questions. It is a silent sentinel of a forgotten era, moving through the dark with the indifference of a falling stone. But because we are here, its journey has a meaning. Because we have turned our instruments toward it, its existence is more than a mere physical fact. We have transformed a piece of debris into a monument. We have taken the silence of the void and turned it into a meditation on our own place in the stars. As we move toward the final chapter of this cosmic story, we must accept that we are the only ones left to read the message. The creators of the probe are gone. The stars that witnessed its launch have shifted in their orbits. The very memory of the civilization that built it has been devoured by the passage of eons. We are the survivors of a long and lonely history, the last guests at a table built by ghosts. But in our curiosity, in our grief, and in our relentless search for the truth, we find a purpose that the vacuum can never claim. We are the witness, and for as long as our flame continues to burn, the universe will not be truly silent. It will have a voice, a name, and a witness to the majesty of its own unravelling. In the heart of the abyss, we have found not just a ghost, but ourselves. The Silver Sentinel, the vessel we named 3i Atlas, now crosses the final invisible threshold. It moves beyond the reach of the solar wind, leaving the protective bubble of our parent star and entering the true, unadulterated cold of the interstellar medium. Behind it, the sun is no longer a source of warmth or a ruler of the heavens, but a dwindling spark, one among many in the billions that compose the vast velvet tapestry of the Milky Way. This is the beginning of the long goodbye, a journey into the eternal dark where time ceases to be measured by seasons or days, and instead becomes a slow, inexorable march toward the eventual unravelling of all things. As the probe recedes, it performs one final act of remembrance. It turns its cold, digital eye back toward the inner sanctum of the solar system. From this staggering distance of 6,400,000,000 kilometers, the majesty of our world is reduced to a haunting insignificance. The Great Wall, the vast oceans, the towering peaks of the Himalayas, and the sprawling lights of our greatest cities are all compressed into a single, fragile pixel of pale blue. It is a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam, a lonely outpost of life in a desert of vacuum. To the universe, this speck is a statistical irrelevance, a brief fluctuation in the chemistry of a minor planet. But to us, it is everything. It is the stage upon which every human tragedy and triumph has played out, the only home we have ever known in the terrifying reaches of the abyss. 3. I-Atlas continues its retreat, its power sources slowly decaying, its sensors dimming as it enters the realm of the Oort cloud. Here, millions of icy remnants from the birth of the solar system drift in a silent, slow-motion ballet. They are the ghosts of a primordial era, frozen sentinels that have never known the touch of a photon. The probe passes among them like a phantom, a piece of sophisticated clockwork returning to the primitive chaos of the void. It is now a ghost ship carrying the records of a civilization that may well be extinct by the time it reaches the outskirts of the next star system in 40,000 years. This is the lonely probe motif in its purest form, a solitary witness to the fact that we once existed, drifting into an oblivion that does not care for our history or
Atlas
our names.
promised to bridge
This
the gap
departure represents the
between
death
mystery
of the subject.
and understanding.
For eons, we have placed ourselves at the centre of the cosmic narrative, imagining that the stars were lanterns hung for our guidance, and that the universe was a story written for our benefit. But as 3i Atlas vanishes into the interstellar gloom, we are forced to confront a more sombre reality. The universe is not a story, it is a mechanism. It is a relentless, unfeeling engine of entropy. From the moment of the first ignition, the cosmos has been moving toward a state of maximum disorder. The stars we see tonight are merely temporary candles, burning through their limited fuel before they inevitably collapse into white dwarfs or vanish into the minks of black holes. The epoch of light is but a fleeting moment in the true history of the cosmos, which will be defined by
The
trillions upon
mathematics of this
trillions of
alignment
years of
have
darkness.
sparked intense debate
Yet,
in
in this
astronomical
recognition of our
circles.
insignificance, there is a profound and melancholic optimism. we must consider the scale paradox that defines our existence. We are biological machines composed of the same atoms that were forged in the hearts of dying stars, yet we have developed the capacity to turn our gaze upward and ask why. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. The fact that the universe is vast and cold and indifferent only makes the miracle of consciousness more radiant. We are the improbable observers who found a letter in the dark and, despite the overwhelming odds, spent our short lives trying to read its contents. The message carried by 3i Atlas is not just for some hypothetical alien intelligence. It is a message to the void itself. It is a defiant shout against the encroaching silence. Even if no one ever finds the probe, and even if the golden records it carries are eroded by the passage of millions of years of micrometeoroid impacts, the fact that it was built remains an indelible truth. The act of creation is its own justification. We sent a piece of ourselves into the abyss not because we expected to be heard, but because we could not bear to be silent. We are the witness, the brief spark of awareness in a symphony of cold matter. As the eons pass, the stars will continue to drift apart. The galaxies will recede beyond the cosmic horizon until every inhabitant of every world feels as though they are the only inhabitants of the entire universe. The great structures of the cosmos will unravel, and the energy that once ignited the first suns will be spread so thin that the temperature of the void will drop to nearly absolute zero. This is the inexorable end, the final chapter of the book where every word is erased by the creeping frost of entropy. The mechanism of the universe will finally go still, and the great tapestry will be reduced to a collection of stray threads drifting in a featureless abyss. But for now, the light still reaches us. For now, the flame of our curiosity burns with a fierce, desperate intensity. We are the survivors of a catastrophe of scale, the tiny creatures who dared to measure the infinite. We should not mourn the eventual death of the universe, for to do so would be to miss the beauty of its current state. The tragedy of the end is what gives the present its meaning. The fleeting nature of our watch makes every observation a sacred act. We have looked into the heart of the catastrophe and found it beautiful. We have stood on the edge of the void and refused to flinch. 3i Atlas is now a distant memory, a speck of silver lost in the eternal sea. It has become a part of the interstellar medium, a relic of a time when the universe was young and full of light. Its journey is no longer a mission of discovery, but a meditation on the nature of being. It is a monument to the fact that for one brief glorious epoch, there was something rather than nothing. There was a witness. There was a voice that called out into the dark. And though the dark did not answer, the call itself was enough to transform the vacuum into a
gateway
temple.
to questions
We are
of
the eyes of the
intelligence
cosmos
in the
staring into
universe.
the heart of the unraveling. We are the dreamers who imagine the stars before we ever touch them. And as we close this record of the entire history of the universe, we do so with the knowledge that our presence was the greatest miracle of all. We were here. We saw it. We understood, however briefly, the mechanism of the eternal. The long goodbye has begun, and the stars are starting to fade, but the echo of our search will remain as a testament to the power of the mind. The probe moves on, the suns grow cold, the void returns to its primordial state of rest. There is nothing left to say, for the story has reached its final unwritten page. There is only the vast, cold and beautiful majesty of the end. There is only the ending of the light and the beginning of the infinite. There is only the silence.